It's not an STD. That's the thing. It was urinary tract infection, which we can all get.
It must have been that wet bikini you were wearing at the beach, right?
That's right. It was, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. When you have one wild night, it causes another wild night, Raj.
I wish I was having wild nights. I wish I was wearing red leather, getting abducted by a gunslinger, and being forced at gunpoint to make sweet, sweet love. But that wasn't the issue here.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we love and growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you even remember what Blockbuster Video was? If you answered yes, and this is a podcast for you, I'm one of your three co-hosts, Roger Roper, and alongside me are my two co-hosts, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And Gene, that's gotta be Swann, Lyons.
You help me get my bike back, and I'll get us into a high zoot buggy like you never saw.
And each week we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. Each week, the audience selects from 6 movie choices that we then break out our race car VHS tape rewinders and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. At the end of the podcast, the three of us will provide you, the audience, with a number of wipes each movie would take to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, and Watchmen. Guys, we just released our first preview episode of season 3 of Westworld.
Yeah, we did, Raj, and we also just finished our rewatch. And at the end of that, I finally took the time, took everyone's advice off of Twitter, and watched the trailer for season 3. I'm kind of glad I waited to watch it because I got super excited. I was telling Big D like last week, I was like, I'm not a trailer guy. Like I don't really get excited by trailers. I just want to watch the damn show. This is the trailer to end all trailers. I'm super amped now.
Yeah. So you can find all the information, shatontv.com, and come along with us as we enter season 3 of Westworld. Speaking of Westworld, Big D, what do we have in store tonight here on the podcast?
So over the years, I think our listeners have become almost like friends and family. So the movie tonight, I'm going to take full responsibility for. I've spoken about this movie many times on the podcast, to the point where one of our listeners, Sean Green, back in August, wrote in and said, is it possible I can't right now afford to commission a movie? Could I give you $20? We're going to put a category together, and we're going to hopefully get your film picked. His category was Guilty Pleasures. He had The Wraith, Just One of the Guys, Beastmaster, The Boogeymen, Shocker, and the movie which I wanted, which was Timerider. We unfortunately never got to it because we went on a string of commissions. So he finally in December said, you know what? I really need to get this movie done for you. And I'll say I'm sorry ahead of time. But the movie that he decided that he was going to commission today was the 1982 time travel adventure, Timerider, The Adventures of Lyle Swann.
And anytime someone send in their hard-earned dollars here to the podcast, we always ask them to send along a little email describing why they sent that in. And Gene, you always do the honors of reading those emails.
That's right, Raj. Sean wrote in to say, it's time, Big D. I choose to commission Timerider. I tried it in a category, but it looks like it's not going to win. So let's do it this way. I'm doing this because I want to support the show. You guys really feel like old friends that I get to reconnect with on a weekly basis. I appreciate the shows so much. Big D, you're the only one I remember actually making a request for a movie, so I choose this one. I wish there was a movie consensus that I could remember because I'd prefer to do something for all of you. Unfortunately, my finances allow for one commission, so Timerider it is. Thanks, guys, for everything you do. You're all amazing, and hopefully this goes for a long time in the future. Sorry this email isn't great. The commission was the priority to me. Best, Sean. You know, Sean, I'm glad you picked Timerider as well, because Big D's been crowing about this thing for like 4 years, and I'm glad we actually got the time to watch it. I appreciated it as a motorcycle enthusiast.
Well, Timerider, The Adventure of Lyle Swann is a 1982 action film directed by William Deere and stars Fred Ward as Lyle Swann, a cross-country dirt bike racer. The film's screenplay was written by Michael Nesmith, a member of the band Monkees, who briefly appears as one of the Baja 1000 officials in the beginning of the film. The movie was shot in 25 days with a budget of just $1 million. Upon its theatrical release, Vincent Canby of the New York Times commented, "At the point at which I walked out, about 55 minutes into the story, there hadn't been a single characterization, situation, line of dialogue, camera angle, or joke to indicate what anyone connected with Timerider had the remotest idea they were doing." So that's the movie that we are going to be doing for you today. If you've never watched this movie, don't worry about it. We're going to break it down. But before we do, we always ask the question, where were you? What are your memories of Timerider, The Adventures of Lyle Swann? We'll start with you, Big D.
So I've spoken about it many times. I loved time travel movies, not just the good ones. I like even the bad ones. My Science Project, The Final Countdown, obviously Back to the Future. But I always remember in the back of my mind this movie I'd seen when I was very young. When this came out, I was only 9. And it just captured my imagination. I used to daydream about what it would be like to go back in time. And since I didn't have many friends at that point, I thought, wow, if I could go back in time and like pull out a radio, they'd all like me. It would be something really cool to do. So I would daydream about this. And this movie, it just captured my imagination. What would it be like to go back to the Old West? And also what it would be like to drive a motorcycle. So to the point where I had my father almost ready to buy me a Honda Enduro, which they drive something similar in this. So you could go off-road on the street. I just thought I'd be the coolest kid in town. And much like this movie, I don't really think what I imagined it would be would end up what would be reality. So that's my memory. I love this movie.
Gene, have you ever seen Timerider?
Raj, I had not. I'm a fan of anything on two wheels. I've ridden bicycles and scooters and mopeds and motorcycles, and I absolutely love movies about motorbikes like Quadrophenia and Easy Rider and The World's Fastest Indian, which, by the way, if you want to hear the King Bee freak out over a movie, The World's Fastest Indian, he's absolutely in love with. But until I met Big D, I'd never even heard of Timerider.
Yeah, I agree. I had never heard of Timerider again. And I know that we're taking commissions for these movies. And I'd like to instill a new policy process here at Shat the Movies of where I could turn in my receipt for reimbursement. Because I was initially excited because I found this movie for free on YouTube. And I thought to myself, well, this is great. It's right on YouTube. It's a good quality. I saved it. I bookmarked it. I shared it with you guys. And then when I went to go watch it, apparently the channel had been taken down. So I wonder if that's because YouTube's algorithms, like the movie hadn't been watched until I stumbled upon it. And then they were like, oh, wait a minute, we can't have this up. So I had to spend $6 to rent this movie on Amazon Prime.
Also, for our German listeners, the Shatscheisers, you can go ahead and still watch this on YouTube because it's still up there.
It's still in German for free. That's right. Well, with that being said, Big D, play the trailer.
His name is Lyle Swann. He's racing against the clock.
Stand by for automatic.
In more ways than one.
Perimeter violation. Sector 4.
Terry, is that Marie?
Because this ride, instead of taking him 1,000 miles forward, will take him 105 years backward.
Dr. Savage, wheel! Sector 2. Perimeter violations.
Abort. Send back.
Timerider, The Adventure of Lyle Swann.
If I'm right, sir, he stepped out around 1875.
Man, am I glad to see you.
He just happened to be in the right place at the wrong time.
I was wondering if maybe you could show me on this map here where I am.
And fate gave him a present.
Hey, you okay?
Of the past.
Where are you going?
Only trouble was, he didn't know it.
What was that? Where'd it go? I don't know. Hey, what the hell's happening here, huh?
He didn't understand the people.
Hey, why are those guys shooting at me like that?
And they didn't understand him.
Where did these come from? Tinker toys, mostly. See, I hang with technoid types. We party and they come up with all this Bonnaroo boogie.
In short, everything was different.
Take off your clothes.
Well,
What?
almost everything.
You heard me, Mr. Swan.
Timerider, The Adventure of Lyle Swann.
General Lee had that machine. We
won the war.
The past-present fantasy of a desert racer, a beautiful gunslinger,
Where are you from, my friend?
Canoga Park, L.A.
a renegade priest,
Beautiful, senor. Where did you get this, man?
Got it at an Exxon station.
and assorted bad guys.
Jumped up and down on it. Up and down. Kicked it.
Timerider, the adventure of Lyle Swann, an off-road racer who's way, way off the road.
Lyle Swann is a motorcycle racer competing in the Baja 1000 cross-country race. Swann has a reputation for being a great rider, but is plagued by technical problems from the gadgetry he incorporates into his C&J framed XT500 Yamaha. When Swann accidentally goes far off course, he rides through a time travel experiment and gets sent back to November 5th, 1877. The scientists in charge of the experiment soon realize what has happened, but Swann rides off unaware of what has happened to him before he can be returned to the present.
So it starts off, we see this big, off-road race. And for me, I'm not a bike enthusiast, even though I wanted an enduro. So I did some research and I was shocked to find out that the Baja 1000 is very real. It's actually prestigious. It's been going on since 1967. It's on the Baja California Peninsula of Mexico. But the fucked up part is that the local Mexicans have found a little side entertainment by setting up booby traps throughout the course. They dig holes, they block rivers, they bury and hide obstacles. It's so bad that the race organizers warn the drivers or the riders, if you see large groups of people, that normally means there's a booby trap set up nearby. Be really careful. And the people do it to just get viral videos, to try to make some money on YouTube. This might be the most fucked up thing I've heard.
I mean, it might be Big D, but when you think about it, you've got privileged ass affluent people with their motorsports and they're zipping around in the desert having a good old time. And maybe some disadvantaged neighbors down south want to have some fun too. So, it might be that they don't have the money for a motorcycle or a dune buggy, but they do have the money to dig a giant hole.
It's like the sand people in Star Wars.
Exactly.
They always walk in a straight line to hide their numbers. But this is the race where the new Ford Bronco, like those type of modified trucks race in, right? Because I don't really understand this race because you have motorcycles and then at one point he jumps over a Volkswagen Beetle. So is he racing against cars as well?
They do a 2-wheel and 4-wheel division. So there's motorcycles. Then there's also like the modified. They look like traditional dune buggies.
Yeah.
And then I think they have like the cars. It's again, it looks like Mad Max Fury Road without the flames shooting around. But it seems like you drive one of 4 classes.
Yeah, I should highlight at this point that there are much more fun races out there in the world for people who don't have a lot of money. And one of them, I don't know if you guys have heard, is the Chop Top Challenge. And basically, this is it's a cross-country race. It's kind of like part scavenger hunt where you can pick up points along the way. But the only rule is that you have to chop the top off of the car. So you can take like Jeep Cherokee or a Volvo or whatever, but you got to just cut the top off of it. So you get a nice saw going, you cut the top off, and you got to go across country. In some states, it's illegal to drive without a windshield. So they'll sometimes carry a windshield in the back seat and then just put it in the front. But there are 4-man teams or 4-person teams, I guess, that do that. And you can check it out online. It's really exciting. A lot of my friends are involved with that.
But pretty soon, every country is going to be like Mad Max Fury Road. I mean, with the coronavirus hit, like the world is about to collapse. So this is a good preview of the type of races we can look forward to as humankind fights for survival. I guess the question is a Yamaha 2-wheeler the best bike to have in the apocalypse?
Raj, it's a pretty good argument that the XT500 would be great, especially this one. So we talked during Dumb and Dumber about iconic vehicles in movies, and we completely forgot Lyle Swann's XT500 Yamaha. This thing is a mean machine. I mean, and it's not just the bike. The bike is beautiful, and the framing on it is really gorgeously done. But that iconic red suit that he's wearing and that techno advanced helmet, that Lyle Swann look is terrific. When the movie started up, once we got past the GoPro scenes, I was like, this looks fucking awesome. He looks rad. It's still iconic to this day. And I remember now going to video stores as a kid and seeing this poster up on the wall. I think every video store was required to have it. But minus that motion sickness that audiences probably felt in theaters, Lyle like doing stunts across the desert plains in that suit on that motorcycle. It was fun to watch. It was the best part of the movie.
Yeah, and you have to think back with the limited budget that they had and the technology in terms of camera work to be able to rig a motorcycle and get those shots. That had to be some sort of, I'm sure that's where they blew all their $1 million. Most recent movies like 1917, they have stabilizer. Like if you go behind the scenes of 1917, where they're kind of doing the one shot where they're following one of the main characters, the technology in movie making has gotten so spectacular now that you can do that. You can have a person on the back of a motorcycle following and be stable, and cameras aren't as big as they once were. But that got me thinking to myself, back then, this must have been incredibly difficult to shoot.
But do you guys remember Naked Gun, where you're seeing the point of view of the police car,
right?
And then it starts driving through like a car wash. It goes into like a building. It starts driving upstairs. It ends up in a bedroom. That's what I felt like this was. Lyle's not trying to win the race. He's not going anywhere near a direct course. He's going through like these, like they look like bales of hay. He's going over. It looked like a scene. I felt like I was in Soarin' at Disney. Yeah. It was a beautiful scenic route, not the fastest.
So does the motorcycle have special powers? Does it have special technology? What is his bike?
Oh, yeah. If you didn't catch it in the extensive exposition in this movie, as the guys are waiting at the rally point, there's one guy who's like a factory rep, and he's talking to Lyle's like pit crew guy. And he's like, yeah, you know, he's got all those gadgets on that bike. You should reset it to factory. Factory is the way to go. It basically a Beardo guy who looks like the, I don't know, outlaw trucker guy that's on Lyle's team. He has rigged this bike with what today we consider laughable. Back then was like high-tech stuff, like a cassette player that records directions on how to get around, I guess.
It made no sense.
But it was like Iron Eagle. I was expecting them to talk about like how his pit crew was killing themselves. Like the tape, at this point, I'm probably dead. You're going to want to go left at the ravine and go right at the mesa.
But he has this HUD display like an X-Wing pilot in his helmet. So I don't really understand how he has a cassette player, but then he also has a heads-up display, and then auto goes up and down. Auto goes up and down. What is that?
Well, as they tell us in the movie, it's built with Jap parts. So you know it must be technologically advanced. But the science in the movie, it's a bit out there. You know, we have this group of scientists who are in this big room with strobe lights that, you know, that really helps me whenever I'm trying to focus on something. They're aware that there's a windstorm coming 200 miles away, but they're not aware that they set up their experiment in the middle of this famous Baja 1000 course that's running right through them. And why are they doing this in Mexico? Is it illegal? Is there something the scientists are doing that forced them to conduct this illegal experiment within Mexico? And if you are doing an experiment in Mexico, wouldn't you have an invested interest in keeping this shit quiet when it goes wrong?
I feel like I paid way more attention to this movie than anybody else, because during the opening credits, there's this audio voiceover, and there's a scientist saying, he's like, because this experiment isn't officially sanctioned by any national government, we must keep the location secret. All this stuff is meant to explain one simple fact, which is Lyle stumbled upon an experiment. That's why the bike's got to be all rigged out, because the technology got him lost. And the reason why the race is in a hidden location is because they don't want governments to know about it. But it still doesn't explain your very good point, Big D, which is, you know, there's a race going on. Maybe don't have it right there.
I just got distracted by the amount of times that they were like, hey, is that Swann? That's got to be Swann. No one rides like Swann. Hey, look, it's Swann.
Yeah, again, that speaks to just this amateurish writing when it comes to the movie. How many times can they say Swann in 5 minutes? And the only thing I can think about is maybe this is character development where he just really doesn't want to be called Lyle. He's like, listen, guys, don't fucking call me Lyle. It's either Swann or El Diablo. And then the one guy, as they see him coming over the ridge, like, how do you know it's Swann? I'm like, oh, I don't know, because he's wearing a giant fucking red suit and his custom bike, his custom helmet, all the gadgets, his fucking jersey number, which indicates who he is. Maybe that's how you know it's Swann.
Well, while taking a swim break, Swann runs into outlaws led by Porter Reese, who becomes obsessed with stealing Swann's motorcycle, and the outlaws pursue Swann into the small village of San Marcos, but his red suit and dirt bike scare the local Mexicans who think he is El Diablo. There, Lyle meets Claire, who gives him a safe place to hide and severely wounds one of Reese's men. The village priest compels the outlaws to withdraw, but Reese continues to plot the capture of Swann's dirt bike, and Swann is seduced by Claire and sleeps with her, but is later kidnapped by Reese's henchman Claude Dorset as revenge for her shooting and wounding his brother Carl.
So the first person Lyle encounters as he's zipping through the desert in 1877, it's nighttime, and he runs into this old Mexican who's camping out by a campfire, and he scares him to death. And Lyle really needs to work on his entrance. Throughout the movie, he's just freaking people out. When he goes into the village, he like ramps over a wall and starts shooting dirt all over the place. And then he just keeps yelling at people like the old man. Hey, I need some help. Hey, I need some directions. While he's like revving his engine. It's not working. And so I looked into it and I was like, can you really be scared to death? Because this old man has it looks like a heart attack. It just falls over and dies with his eyes wide open, his mouth agape. Turns out that you can scare a person to death. And basically the way it works is if they get an adrenaline dump, which will cause what's called a ventricular fibrillation. And so the heart basically loses its shit and starts to quiver instead of beating. And you can actually be sued for this. You can actually be held legally responsible for scaring someone to death. So I was looking into it, and an insurance company once agreed to pay $300,000 to settle a suit because an 85-year-old man, I shouldn't be laughing.
Yes.
He was surprised by a tractor trailer in the road that he did not see, had a ventricular fibrillation, and then crashed into the tractor trailer. So the insurance company that was covering the tractor trailer was sued for $300,000. So if you're out there on Halloween, maybe you want to jump up and scare your significant other from around the corner, just remember, guys, if that person dies, you could be sued.
Well, I just love how the townspeople of San Marcos are legit wailing at the sight of Lyle, who looks roughly like a cross between Daft Punk and Eddie Murphy in Delirious. They're like,
and that's pretty accurate. That's pretty accurate. And they immediately go to the priest. They're like, hey, Padre, you promised us this holy water is going to save us.
Right.
What the hell's going on? The devil's in town. Why are you here? And what does the priest do? Instead of being like, oh, calm down, everybody, he looks around like, oh, shit, they're kneeling down. So he goes on his knees and points to the sky.
So
immediately, the entire townspeople kowtow.
It makes no sense.
But if Lyle has not been through enough, he's gone back in time. He's now scared that poor elderly Mexican man to death, feels so bad, he covers him up in this quick burial. He keeps driving a little bit, and he stumbles upon a gunshot victim. The guy's dead. He's dressed in old Western attire, whatever. That should have tipped off Lyle. But he's a bloody mess. He's real upset. What does Lyle do? Am I going to get the police? Am I going to hide? Is a killer still around here? No, for some reason, he decides this is a perfect time. I'm going to get butt-ass naked. I'm going to go in the water. He's not leaving his underwear on. He is going full Patrick Swayze, doing Tai Chi in the morning. He's got a beautiful body. He's young. He's as young as Fred Ward could be. He goes into the water, and the camera does this really bizarre close-up onto his zipper as he's zipping his suit back up. Yeah. And this is when we see that Claire has been hiding off in the reeds, just eye-fucking him the whole time. This scene makes no sense to me. If I've just dodged death, I've found some bodies, I'm not going to be thinking about taking a naked bath.
Yeah, and it's not just swimming naked. He sees a dead body, he kills a guy, but he's still, when he's on his bike, nothing can bother Lyle. He's doing stunts, he's still popping wheelies. Yeah, I'm Lyle Swann. It's like, dude.
I think Claire might be psychotic because she straight up blows a dude's nose off. She shoots a dude's nose off and has no remorse whatsoever.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he's an outlaw. It's not like he's a good guy.
Yeah, she does some questionable things. Besides just being a peeping Tom, hiding off there looking at poor Lyle as he's bathing, his rock-hard young body glistening in the sun and just all wet. His curly hair, like a Pantene commercial, he throws it back. He's come to Claire for salvation. Please hide me. You could save my life. Please help me. And Belinda, who plays Claire, she's stunning. I hadn't seen her in anything else. until I looked her up and I found out she was the mud wrestler in UHF. So you guys might know that. But she is gorgeous. She had to have been the motivation for me one of the first times that I touched myself. Because these scenes for a 9-year-old boy would have been too much. Lyle is down there. He's scared. Help me. You'll protect me. She pulls out a gun and says, take your clothes off. And we're thinking like Lyle does, you're a girl. You can't be doing this. But no, she is doing this. The next scene we see, she is raping Lyle.
No, they're not. No.
Yes.
No. He seems to be a pretty much of a willing participant. Now, granted, he is at gunpoint and he did just see her shoot a dude's nose off.
Yes.
So I'm sure if he just had a little bit of interest, I'm sure it was exacerbated by that. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to see where this goes. I'm going to go ahead and play this one out.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. If you reverse the roles, if that was a woman and there was a dude and she's like, help me, and he points a gun at her and he's like, take your clothes off, we'd be like, rape.
Yes.
There's nothing sexier, though, from my understanding, that women find attractive than guys who can shoot other dudes' nose off with a gun. Because it's like precision shooting.
No,
right.
but as crazy and off base as Roger is, there is a double standard. Whenever you hear about high school students, you'd be like, a teacher arrested for having sex with student. You're like, oh my God, what did that guy do? You're like, oh, it's a woman. Whoa. Why do we somewhat think it's okay? Like if a teacher does it to a male student, we think, oh, it's great. Suck it up. Do it. But again, if Claire was a male bandit and did this to a woman, we'd be up in arms.
I mean, if we really want to go down this road, I think it has to do with how attractive the female rapist is, because you know when you're watching, like when you see it in the newspaper and it's like the teacher had sex with a 13-year-old boy, and then you look at her and you're like, yeah, but she's hot. Like,
yeah, I know
that. But if she's like some grotesque beast of a woman, you're like, oh, you monster.
So you're saying that if in like what was the movie, the Stephen King one with the hobbling? Where he's the writer. Yeah.
Misery.
So if Misery, instead of Kathy Bates, we had Belinda Bauer, you're saying that would be a very different movie.
Yeah.
No, well, then it'd
be Basic Instinct.
Well, no, I was thinking of, what's the other one? Fatal Attraction. It'd be Fatal Attraction.
There you go. Yeah. Glenn Close isn't that great looking. Also, she boils a rabbit. But the situation is like, Claire like wants to bang him right away. Like, I don't understand. Is it because of the helmet? Is it because of the jumpsuit? Is it because of the machine?
I have a theory. It's because he's her great-great-great-grandson.
Oh,
she sees that in him. It's like an alien, how they know like you're pregnant with one of them.
Right.
She senses the DNA. It's destiny.
It's like Species. I have to mate with him right away.
Exactly.
The issue here is that for an early 80s movie that's like clearly a B movie, clearly something that would be playing on USA Up all night, there are no boobs or anything. And she literally says, I had to grow up using my body or my gun. And I was like, oh, we're going to get some sick ass boobage here. Nothing.
Well, I think they probably were just a huncher based on the rest of the movie that they were targeting this movie at like kids. Like, I don't think this was a movie for like fully grown adults.
Hey, and I'm going to tell you, a 9-year-old Big D, I didn't need boobs. This was enough. She looked good.
To throw you over the edge at 9?
Oh, I was like, what's going on here? At that point, I was shooting blanks like the bandits here, but I was still pulling out my revolver and trying.
Well, the outlaws capture Lyle's dirt bike, leading to a series of hijinks while Swann gets help from a posse of 2 U.S. Marshals, Ben Potter and Daniels, who are trying to capture or kill the gang. Potter has a personal vendetta against Reese because Reese killed Potter's son 2 years previously, and Swann manages to retrieve his dirt bike and rescue Claire. Potter is killed by Reese in an ambush, and Daniels is mortally wounded and dies later.
You know, one of the things that we see in a lot of time travel movies, especially ones that are set in the Old West, is like everybody's a gunslinger. Everybody's got a gun. Like there's some kid, he's out there baling hay and he's got a gun strapped to his leg. That's not the way it was in the Old West. Guns were expensive and money was like really hard to come by. And so one of the things we see when Potter and Daniels find the dead bodies, they're like, they find his gun. They're like, oh, what kind of fucking bandits? They take his like shot up vest. They're taking like his pants. They're taking everything off the guy. Nobody takes the gun. A gun in 1877 cost $15, which is like $365 today. And it's not like you could just go on, a Monster and find a job real quick. Like this was a lot of money. A gun was a very prized thing.
Forget about the fact that the two bandits leave it, the two marshals leave it, and Swann leaves it. You just found a dead body. Take the gun, protect yourself. You can ride the motorcycle with that thing.
That's why I always, in Red Dead Redemption 2, I always check the bodies for weapons, coinage. While I'm out, it doesn't matter if I'm on a mission or I'm just free roaming, I'm always checking the dead bodies.
The thing with Red Dead is I always like kill people on accident. You know, like I'm just like, let me look in my satchel, and then I blow a guy's head off. I'm like, fuck, might as well check the body. Like, let's see what's in there. $1.25. Oh.
But there's a lot of things that people would do that seem obvious to us that we're watching a time travel movie. In Back to the Future, they even joke, they say future boy, or they hint that maybe he's not from that time. But Swann is so obviously from the future. He's got this machine, this motorcycle. It's got a tape deck. He's giving out energy bars to the boys in the posse. He's throwing glow sticks around. He's got a first aid kit. He's got a map. He's got that cool ass red leather riding gear and the magic helmet. It's an obvious question. Hey, Swann, you were saying you're from LA, but when are you from? Are you from a different time? Wouldn't this be a logical question?
Well, to be fair, LA was always kind of weird. And in 1877, America was this young country that was on the tail end of the Industrial Revolution. So you had immigrants that were flying in from all over the place, not literally flying in, but Oregon trailing in. And there's inventions that are changing life at a rapid pace. Some people in the country had seen electricity, some hadn't. This probably wasn't that abnormal to see some sort of technology you'd never seen before. And to be fair, Claire did ask Lyle, where are you from and why did you come here? They were already having sex when she asked him, but still, she did ask.
And I just have to point out here that the first internal combustion petroleum-fueled motorcycle was the Daimler Reitwagen. It was designed and built by the German inventors Gottlieb Daimler and Wilhelm Maybach in Germany in 1885. So that's a far cry, though, from Lyle's bike, which we've mentioned. As his own words say, the bike is a bunch of Jap parts. So he's not using good, sturdy German engineering by Daimler and Maybach.
And that kind of brings me to the point of this movie that was so disappointing is, in a lot of movies we see like Ash going back in The Evil Dead, and he's got a fucking chainsaw and a shotgun, and that makes sense, and apparently a knowledge of science. Here, all Lyle has is a dirt bike, and he's not even using it right. When he encounters the bandits, what does he do? He keeps riding around town. He's like, at some points, he's going at like 5 miles per hour, like weaving in and out of rooms. Where is that dirt bike the best? In an open field where he can just open throttle and get the fuck away from them. The director was trying really hard to establish for the audience that Lyle has some great superiority due to that dirt bike, but it's really not that big of an advantage over, I don't know, say guns. Like if Lyle Swann were a dude who had just bought a minigun in this movie, or like maybe it's Lyle Swann, the tank driver, and he was going through the desert and got zipped back to 1877, this movie would make a lot more sense.
You didn't notice when he tried to weaponize the bike, when he had like a bow staff that he put across the handlebars. So he started driving through the bandit village and was like hitting people with the stick.
Shut up.
Are you for real? Yes, of course. It was his attempt to weaponize the motorcycle. But Roger, you hinted at the technology of the first motorcycle. This group of hillbillies, when that bike takes off, they shoot it like it's an animal. It's clearly a machine. It's metal. They treat it like it's some demonic beast. In the 1800s, at the time of this movie, 1877, you said a few years later, they developed the first motorized combustion engine, the motorcycle. But at this point in 1877, commercial electricity generators were already available. The phonograph, the steam engine, the locomotive, the mechanical reaper, the lawnmower, the telephone. These things weren't too futuristic that you confuse them with an animal. But if now, say, we stumbled upon, some future technology, what would we do with it? Would we be afraid of it, or would we actually fuck around with it?
Are we talking about like a motorcycle, or like something that I would ride?
So you and Gene, you're out in the desert. You're doing hallucinogens. Most likely, you're nude. and you stumble
Yeah, of
upon
course.
a vehicle.
Yeah, we've got fanny packs on, but the rest of us is nude.
You find a vehicle from 200 years in the future.
Uh-huh.
How would you guys react? Would you fuck around with it, or would you call the authorities?
We'd be like those two monkeys in 2001: A Space Odyssey, just hitting it with sticks, trying to figure out how it all works. I mean, I'm pretty sure that happened the last time we went camping into hallucinogens. We stumbled upon some technology that we tried to utilize, but couldn't figure it all out.
I thought we just rubbed our taints on a giant log.
It was dark. I didn't know what I was rubbing on. But yeah, essentially that's what the evil posse is doing. They're dragging it around like the DeLorean in Back to the Future. And then one of the dude gets on it and he's like, I saw him. He jumped up and down on it, and he jumped up and down on it, and he jumped up and down on it, and then he kicked it here, and he jumped up and down on it, and then he kicked it here. That'd essentially be what Gene and I did. And I'm pretty sure we did to that log in northern Arizona a couple of years ago.
Yeah, they basically, like, whoever was writing this movie decided that these 1877 outlaws were going to just be cavemen, basically. Like if he had gone back to 1877 BC, I don't know if that's even far enough back. If you'd gone back to prehistoric times, I would say, okay, this makes sense. But like, yeah, these are people in the 19th century. I think they could figure out, like, oh, hey, here's a lever. Let's try kicking it. Oh, hey, here's a throttle. Let me try twisting it. Like, they're not that stupid.
Yeah. I mean, you learn to ride a motorcycle in the state of Arizona. You get a safety. First of all, you don't have to go to the classes, but if you want the motorcycle endorsement, you can go to like a 2-day class, and you could go not knowing anything about motorcycle. And then at the end of, like, you start on Saturday, and by Sunday you have a motorcycle license. Like, it doesn't take that long to figure it all out. So I'm pretty sure they're going to figure this out.
Yeah, it's weird that we're like one of the highest motorcycle fatality rates in the country. I don't know why that is.
It's almost as if the no helmet law has some sort of negative consequences.
It's hot out here, Raj.
Aha!
Speaking of death, I wanted to talk a little bit about the way these guys start their approach going into the bandit village that you mentioned, Big D. At this point in the movie, Claire has been abducted by these outlaws. And Lyle and the marshals and the priests, they're like, all right, well, what are we going to do? We got to go help her out, right? Now, these outlaws, as you mentioned, Raj, one of them got his nose shot the fuck off, and his brother is there too. They're really pissed off. So let's add this up here. Claire, beautiful woman, 1877,
Right.
gets abducted by these bandits, one of whom she disfigured by shooting him in the face. Chances are Claire is being tortured or gang raped or killed. And what are these guys doing? They get up on the top of the ridge. They're looking down at the bandit camp. They're like, well, we better just hang out here for a while. Better wait till dark. Hey, you ever seen a glow stick? Check this out. They are taking their sweet ass time. Like, where's the sense of urgency? She's dead at this point. And the poor screenwriters and production crew have to figure out ways to kill time in the bandit camp for a couple hours. They're like, don't touch her. Well, touch her. Feed her. Don't touch her. I don't know.
They really had to stretch this movie out. I think there was a good 30 minutes of script here. It's like watching a bad comedian who only has 5 minutes of material.
Yes.
And they were like, you got to do 30 minutes. And he's like, well, I have 5. And they're like, well, you need to do 30. The movie is stretched out to an hour and 44 minutes. This movie could have been 75 minutes and done. That's all I needed. And that still would have been 30 minutes too long.
It's faster in German.
9-year-old me was hoping for another sex scene. And this one didn't need to be consensual either.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Two rapes don't make a right, but I'm sorry.
That's our new T-shirt at shatmovies.com/shop.
Well, in a final showdown, Reese's band of outlaws face Swann and Claire atop a plateau. When a helicopter shows up to take Swann home, Reese's men run away in fear. Reese stays behind and fires at the helicopter, hitting one of the pilots. The helicopter begins spinning wildly as the co-pilot tries to maintain control, knocking the dirt bike off the side of the plateau. Reese is killed by the helicopter's tail rotor, and the helicopter manages to land on the plateau and extract Swann. Guys, where the fuck did this helicopter come from?
The future.
Yeah, from the future. So the scientists, as they kept going back to that point where the initial experiment happened, hoping that Lyle would have backtracked so they could pull him back. When he's not, they said, hey, the wires are almost frying. This is the most we can do. You have 3 hours. So for some reason, they choose to take what looks like a TV weather helicopter. This thing has, it's as generic as they come. They've got the 2 pilots. They don't even give him somebody with a gun to sit in the door. It's the scientist. They send him out there, right? And even though this epic ending, he pops up over the cliff and you're like, yeah, he's going to be survived. It's going to be great. I got bad news.
That was not my reaction. That was
my reaction. Guys, I got bad news. A TV weather helicopter. 5 or 6 bandits shooting like a couple rifles, a couple handguns at maybe 20, 30 feet away. They're taking that helicopter down. And a tail rotor, even though at the end when it spins around, it's beautiful. You see the boots. It looks like a Looney Tunes cartoon with like the exploded meat. I think that if you hit a body with a tail rotor, it might damage the tail rotor to the point where that helicopter goes down anyway. So there's a lot of problems. And also, nobody heard this helicopter. No other bandits, people roaming around you, coming over.
Big D, you were airborne, but were you only fixed wing or did you do helo?
No. Rope, you fast rope out of the helicopter, rappel.
Okay, but you did fast roping out of the helicopter. But like, are you like me where you have an irrational fear of being torn up by the blades? That's why I refuse to get in helicopters, because I fear, maybe in a previous life I was decapitated, but I cannot get in a helicopter.
Well, it is. You see and you feel the blades, and especially at night. Blackhawks, like the rotors, the main rotors generate electricity. So static electricity. So even in a complete darkness, like zero visibility, you can see the outline of the blades and it feels like it's going to hit you on the head. But every helicopter has an angle that's safe to board from. So like a Black Hawk, it's the side. It's 90 degrees. So as long as you know the angle coming in, you should be safe. I mean, I'm 6'6", and yeah, I felt like it was going to hit me in the head, but they assured me it wouldn't.
Did you still duck down?
Oh yeah, fuck yes. Are you kidding me? Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised they haven't built, like, there hasn't been a breakthrough in technology that has replaced the mechanical whirlybirds to do something a little bit more safe, like almost like the UFO, like whatever they use in science fiction, where magnets, I don't know.
Some fucking future tech? Yeah, that's a couple hundred years in the future.
Is it really? All right.
Yeah, yes.
Well, yes. I mean, again, you guys are gun enthusiasts. Is it the guns of the 1800s that make it so wildly inaccurate, or is it the people who are shooting them?
Well, I mean, some of them just don't know how to shoot. You got the priest shooting from like with a rifle from the hip. Claire clearly can hit shit just fine, but these bandits, yeah, they're pretty bad. I think the one that struck me as the most odd is there's a scene where the bandits got Lyle at gunpoint, and you see the bandit, he's holding his gun up, and you're like, oh, Lyle must be about 30 yards out, and the bandit's having a little trouble. His hand's shaking with the gun in it, and he's struggling with the decision, I think, to shoot Lyle or not. He's a little perplexed. Then you get the wide shot. Lyle is 6 feet away from him. They could literally reach out and touch each other. And at that point, I'm like, okay, these guys are just terrible shots. This is actually the real reason why General Lee lost the war.
This is the kind of Westworld I want to go to, where they have inept bandits. Claire is on the back of the motorcycle, and she's trying to shoot, and she's trying to reload this 6-shooter at the same time. He hits a bump, and comically, all the rounds go up into the air, and she can't reload her gun. But yet, momentarily, like a couple seconds later, she's still shooting it straight into the ground. I would feel safer in this world with real bullets than Westworld. These fuckers can't hit a single thing. Nothing. And maybe that's why the helicopter didn't go down. They probably didn't hit it.
No, they definitely hit it because the pilot died. So the co-pilot.
Yeah, it's probably a ricochet. It probably wasn't a straight shot. Probably one of the guys shot the ground and it kicked up.
He just died of fear.
Right.
Lost it.
Well, as the helicopter pulls away, Claire snatches a pendant from Swann's neck that was handed down from his great-great-grandmother, who had stolen it from his great-great-grandfather as a reminder of one incredible night they had together. Swann realizes as the credits roll that he is his own great-great-grandfather. And then the movie just ends. It just ends. There's no resolution. It just ends.
So if you joined us for our Watchmen podcast on Shat on TV, and if you haven't, go check it out. It's some of our best work. We discussed in the Watchmen podcast something called the bootstrap paradox. And we also discussed causal loops. And causal loops have several different kinds. There's a grandfather paradox, predestination paradox, and the ontological paradox. And each of those examines an instance where something has no starting point, right? Timerider is so well written that it has all of those paradoxes inside of its time loop, right? But the pendant is the most glaring because it has no origin point in time. So when you think about it, Lyle has this pendant. He goes back in time, gives it to his great-great-grandmother, Claire, fucks her, becomes his own great-great-grandfather, and then when Lyle is born, he gets that pendant back again. So the pendant never had an origin point, and that's called a causal loop. It doesn't make any fucking sense. So way to go, Timerider.
I just don't understand why they even shoehorned this in. Why the fuck would they, at the end of the movie, say, oh God, he had sex with his great-great-grandmother, which created him, and somehow this was necessary for him to be born? It didn't make any fucking sense.
I guess it might have been for the audience who's super fucking high. They're like, ugh. Raj, I mean, you know better than I do. I think this movie, Super High, might be good. Like, it might be something worth watching. No?
No. I mean, I watch it stone cold sober, so maybe. But even stoned, this would not be a fun movie because it really truly is a boring movie. The reviewer who saw this in the theaters for the New York Times, he is correct. There's no character arc. The characters don't learn anything. They don't go through they don't take a situation where they were like a typical hero arc journey. Lyle doesn't do that. They don't learn anything. There's no reason to root for or against any of these characters. It's a movie that just happened. No. And that's it.
No, Lyle lives life like he's riding his bike. He's on the edge. You can't control him. You can't expect him to grow. He's out there on this lifelong adventure. I mean, he's out there trying to survive, Raj. He's having sex. He's dodging bullets. He's getting his bike back. He's running on raids. He's jumping in a helicopter. What do you want him to do? Cut him some slack.
You know that there was an intent to make this a much deeper movie. Like, they really thought people were going to get more out of it. And one of the things that blew my mind is, aside from the causal loops, which, by the way, I think were intentional, like, it's not a mistake that the pendant had no origin and no terminus. Like, it's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be like, whoa, man, that's crazy. Like, that was his pendant, but he gave it to her. It even goes so far as Claire's last name. So Claire's last name is Signet, which is French for swan. But what's funny about it is Lyle's last name is spelled Swan with 2 N's. Fun fact, that swan does not have a French origin. That swan with 2 N's has a Norse origin, meaning boy or lad. And basically what happened was Vikings came over to Scotland, and that became a Scottish last name when they kind of landed on the Scottish shores. So Swan, 2 N's, not related to Swan, 1 N, completely different. By the way, Swan with 1 N, or Signet, the French, means, I believe, voice or song.
That's some great research you did there, Gene. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Me instead, I was sitting there just dumbfounded at the ending. You know, it does end abruptly. Helicopter takes off, and then it turns into an episode of like Dukes of Hazzard or Airwolf, where the end credits are just a series of stills of action shots. Mm-hmm. Swan jumping over the Volkswagen Bug, some of the bandits riding on their horses. It was like the ending of a television show. I felt like, did they just run out of money? And they're like, okay, listen, we know that they all just saw these exact scenes 20 minutes ago. Let's just remind them so when they're leaving the theater, they tell their friends how action-packed this was.
Well, this is an old Western film, right? Or like the old A-Team. So at like the end credits, it could be them focusing in on a character and then turning back at the camera and like laughing, and then the name appears at the top, at the bottom. That's what I halfway expected to happen. Anyway, that's our review of Timerider. Now's the time of the podcast to break out our Shat meters and give you our wipe scores. If you've never listened to the movie podcast before, we rate based on a wipe score. What a wipe score is if you don't wipe a lot, that means it's good every time we go to the bathroom. And right now there's a shortage of toilet paper due to COVID-19, the coronavirus. People are stocking up on toilet paper, and I can't express this enough. If you had a bidet, you would have already been prepared. You would have been ahead of the game. But if you're not, and you're like most people, you have to rely on toilet paper. So when it comes to Shat the movies, 0 wipes is a perfect movie. 5 wipes is a terrible movie. We'll start with you, Big D. How many wipes do you give Timerider, the Adventure of Lyle Swann?
So I'm sure that 9-year-old Big D thought, man, what a great premise. You've got this guy he's a motocross champion. He likes technology. He's going to get lost in this big race. He's going to stumble upon a time travel experiment. He's going to end up in the Old West in 1877. How could this not be amazing? For 9-year-old Big D, it was amazing. It was a great adventure I wanted to go on. Sadly, adult Big D, it doesn't live up to the potential. I think the core idea is great, but the low budget, it was $1 million. They shot it in 25 days. It limited what they could do. They had some big ideas that I think the budget in 1983 filmmaking, it just wouldn't allow them to do. It was doomed from its inception. But I think this would be an ass-kicking idea to reboot in 2020. Do something similar to this, but don't make it campy, Back to the Future. Golly gee, do something a little more R. I want to see Quentin Tarantino do a time travel movie like this. I think it would be fucking
Timerider.
This shit would be great. So for me, unfortunately, this is a 1-wipe 9-year-old Big D. This is a 4-wipe 2020 46-year-old Big D.
That's why we do this podcast. So Gene, you had never watched this movie though, so you cannot give it a 9-year-old Gene score and then a 40-year-old Gene score. So how many wipes do you give Timerider just overall?
Well, Raj, this movie has style in spades. Like, I love that part of it. It looks cool. From Lyle's kick-ass motorcycle and his riding suit to Reese's plated teeth and his sinister attire. I love a man in black. Claire is drop dead gorgeous, and the riding scenes make me want to hop on a Honda CRF and go blasting through the desert. But despite all that, Timerider is all style and no substance. This plot is soup thin. As you said, Raj, it feels like it's just trying to fill time. The performances were dull and nonsensical, and it's a long 90 minutes of absolutely nothing. I feel like it's one of the most unmemorable, uninspiring, uninteresting movies I've ever watched. And for me, it's 4 wipes.
Yeah, I agree with you. This movie made me want to scratch out my eyeballs or at least shoot off my nose. I appreciate the commissions, I truly do, but this one was one of the worst movies we've done here on the podcast, and I'm giving it a full 5 wipes score. It's the kind of movie where you get poop on the back of your legs and you got to go take a shower immediately afterwards. That's how I felt. So anyway,
this is a Corona poop, and you have no toilet paper.
I know.
So, Sean, if you're looking for a movie that all 3 of us liked, you really hit the nail on the head, buddy.
So if we were add up our scores, 2 4s and a 5, and then divide by 3, that gives you our overall Shat score, which is what, Gene?
Raj, Timerider, The Adventure of Lyle Swann comes out with a average Shat score of 4.3 repeating wipes.
Yeah, I will say that the first time I tried watching it, I was high. I rolled a joint with my new joint roller and sat down to watch it, and I was like, even I'm high, I'm so bored. So yeah, and then I had to watch it sober. Anyway, all right. So 4.3 repeated Big D. If we were to compare that with all the movies we've done here at Shat the Movies, where does that rank Timerider, The Adventures of Lyle Swann in the pantheon of Shat?
So this is movie now 150.
Woo! Wow!
And with a score of 4.33 repeating, that puts it in the 139 spot. Roger, you said this is the worst movie you've ever seen, but
it's one of the worst movies. It's one of the worst movies.
The only movies that are worse than Timerider are Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, King Ralph, Highlander, 10 Things I Hate About You, Predator 2, Safe Men, Showgirls, Willow, Speed 2, and In the Mouth of Madness.
I would watch Safe Men and Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves before I'd watch this. This movie was laughably bad. This movie was like a student project.
That was a good
like someone let a couple students go out into the desert with some peyote, and they were like, come back with a feature-length movie. And they were like, all right. That's what this movie is. It's terrible.
What's funny about Timerider is it would be shitty as a video game plot. Like I'd be like, God, this video game sucks.
Yeah,
that's very telling.
No, but isn't this like Red Dead Redemption that you guys just sit around half the time?
No,
like collecting
not at all.
snake pelts? Yeah, come on. Roger, I watched you for an hour sit along the water's edge trying to find snakes so you could skin them.
Yeah, I got to get my legendary pelt.
Come on.
I gotta make my belt. Yeah, the Red Dead Redemption is perfect for individuals like me who like the idea of going outside, but don't really actually want to go outside. So yeah, so that was that. All right, 4.3 repeated. Thank you so much for doing this movie. Big D and Gene, now's the time of the podcast where we break out our shout outs and tell you what movie we're doing next. Gene, what is a shout out?
Raj, a shout out is our way of saying thank you for visiting us at shatthemovies.com, where you can support the podcast at our /support link or get a shout out at /shout out. Be sure to browse all around the site. You can see past episodes, vote for future episodes, and interact with us. This week's shout outs go to Bridget, review trading places I would commission, but I'm homeless, or am I? The Big Lebowski isn't a top 10 movie. Shame on you.
Whoa.
And the email address is the last 30 minutes are garbage and deserve at least one wipe more. What happened to Carrie on the podcast? Muddy asshole. TV dinners. Should I keep my mutton chops? Wife says no. I say yes.
Yes, you should definitely keep your mutton chops. They're coming back.
Big D?
I can't grow facial hair. It's a topic that shames me. My Scandinavian background, I look pathetic. So I'm envious of any facial hair.
I tell you what, I've been enjoying growing this beard. And Gene, you are super clean shaven these days. But I got to tell you, having a beard is fantastic.
I am genetically predisposed to bearding, but I really don't. Yeah, I really don't like having one. TV dinners, I say keep the mutton chops, but only if you're not into ska. If you like ska, you can't have mutton chops. It's one or the other.
No.
Also, shout outs go to Peter McDowell, no relation to Malcolm, Day the Dark Dreamer, Red Bar Radio, Andrew and Sarah in Saskatchewan, James Limp Dickton, Kevin, Big D referring to Steven Seagal as a ponytailed serpent is one of the funniest things I've ever heard in Sydney, Australia. Marcia from Compton, Gene, you're my favorite. Well, I love you too, Marcia.
Oh, that's so nice.
Fuck, I meant Jimmy Kimmel. I'm sorry, Jimmy Fallon, if you somehow listen to this Z-tier podcast, laughing my ass off. And the email address is Jimmy Kimmel stole my bitch and I'm sad. Roger syphilitic member. Crab man.
How do they know? How did they know?
I don't have syphilis.
Ooh, doctors differ.
What are you talking about?
I know somebody went to the hospital with a swollen member.
I went to the hospital with a swollen ball, and it wasn't because of syphilis. I guarantee you.
Chlamydia.
It wasn't chlamydia.
Chlamydia.
It wasn't chlamydia. It was probably it was mostly due to a UTI is really what it's down to.
That's what they all say.
If you get a UTI.
Yeah. Hold on. That's like a girl telling you she got it from a wet bathing suit. Okay? That's your UTI story. Stick with that, Roger. Stick with it.
I'm telling you, that's exactly what it was. They tested me for sexually transmitted diseases while I was there. I would know if I had a STD. It happens, dude. You get a little bacteria and you don't take care of it, but right away it can affect your balls.
Use a condom, ladies.
Oh my God. I'm in a committed relationship and I'm having sex with one person who doesn't have chlamydia.
Not yet.
All right. Listen, I want you to text Kelly and I can't wait to tell her that you've been saying all these horrible things about her.
She already knows. We already talked about it.
Oh, did you?
Mm-hmm.
And rounding out the shout-outs, we have shout-outs to Crabman, Phil the Evertonian, who's my newest Instagram buddy, and proud SJW and Shat the Movies listener. I'd rather be an SJW than a smelly neckbeard. Thanks, everyone, for your shout-outs. Again, if you'd like to hear your name on the podcast or your phrase or advertising for your company or insulting Roger, just go to shatthemovies.com/shoutouts. Back to you, Raj.
I have been paying for this emergency room visit over the past, 6 months. This was back in October. I've paid at least $700 in out-of-pocket copays.
Wear a condom.
Yep.
It's not an STD. Like, that's the thing. It was a urinary tract infection, which we can all get.
It must have been that wet bikini you were wearing at the beach. Right?
That's right. It was, that's exactly right. All I'm saying is, if that's how much it costs to spend one night in the ER and I have to I'm still paying on it. I can only imagine what people with real medical issues have. And it's ridiculous. We need to invest in our fucking social infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, think about that. When you have one wild night, it causes another wild night, Raj.
I wish I was having wild nights. I wish I was wearing red leather, getting abducted by a gunslinger and being forced at gunpoint to make sweet, sweet love. But that wasn't the issue here. Big D, what's the movie we're doing next?
So next week we had an incident which has never happened before in the history of Shat the Movies. It was nearly a controversy that could have brought the entire organization down. One of our listeners, John S., was nice enough to commission the 1985. I'm just going to tell you what it is. I'm not going to tell you. So John S. commissioned a movie, right? He made a donation. Sometimes the emails get caught up in our filtering, so I didn't see it. A day later, somebody else writes in, a listener, Miguel F., and he says, "Hey, my sister and I, we really love this movie. Can we commission it?" I said, "Yep." They both commissioned the exact same movie within like 2 days of each other. So I had to go back and I said, "Hey, John, are you okay that Miguel and his sister want to commission it?" He said, "Fuck no, make them pick a new movie." So I went to Miguel and I said, "Miguel, do you want this movie? You want to pick another one?" He goes, "No, I'm okay with sharing." John said, "Yeah, I'm okay with sharing." So John and Miguel decided to share this commission. So we're going to hear an email from both of them. We're all about harmony, friendship. So John and Miguel came together. So next week we have a dual commission, and it is a movie that's based on the popular board game. This comedy begins at a dinner party hosted by Mr. Body, where he admits to blackmailing his visitors. These guests, who have all been given aliases, are Mrs. Peacock, Miss Scarlet, Mr. Green, Professor Plum, Miss White, and Colonel Mustard. When Body turns up murdered, all are suspects, and together they try to figure out who is the killer. Came out in December of 1985. It was directed by Jonathan Lynn and made a whopping $14.6 million at the box office.
I cannot wait to do this movie. This movie is one of my all-time favorites, and I think it is yours too, Gene.
It is good.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so stick around to the end of the credits to find out exactly if you don't already know. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Thank you so much, Sean, for commissioning Timerider so that we never have to talk or bring up this movie ever again. We're everywhere on social media if you want to follow us. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram. Just search for Shat the Movies. Our email where you can suggest upcoming films is hosts@shatthemovies.com. You can also support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, completing a free anonymous survey so we can sell out to advertisers. You can buy our merch, or you can commission your own movie and find all the information for all four of those ways at shatthemovies.com. You can also check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review television series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, and Watchmen. You can find all the information on our website, shatontv.com. If you are not a fan of Westworld, what are you waiting for? Go check it out and then join the podcast. We're everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. That does help the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert, and Gene. Oh, I think that's Swan. I'm Roger Roper. Be sure to join us next week for our following podcast review. Thank you so much for listening. Take care and good night.
Every person in this room has the perfect motive.
Stand back!
For murder.
What do you mean? Murder.
But only one of these suspects is the murderer. Is it the timid Mr. Green?
Why are you screaming? Because I'm frightened of what? Screaming!
Or the militant Colonel Mustard?
If I was the killer, I would kill you next. Huh? I said F.
Mrs. White, who helped her husband on his way.
Well, it's a matter of life after death. Now that he's dead, I have a life.
Miss Scarlet, who's helped many men along the way.
Practice makes perfect. Huh.
Professor Plum, who's looking for a way.
I'm looking.
Mrs. Peacock.
I have absolutely no idea what we're doing here, but I am determined to enjoy myself.
Or did the butler do it?
No.
Paramount Pictures invites you to an evening of mystery.
Let us out!
Murder.
This is getting quite serious.
And madness. In the movie that makes a scene of the crime.
So who did it?
Clue. It's not just a game anymore.